Maduro is currently being loaded into an armored truck there by federal forces, where he will then be taken for his first court appearance, which is expected to happen around noon Eastern time later today. That's a live picture right now of federal authorities loading Maduro into that armored truck. As we've been discussing, later today, he and his wife expected to make their first U.S. appearance here in Manhattan. Maduro is facing serious charges, including narco-terrorism conspiracy.
4 other senior Venezuelan officials, including Maduro's son, are also named in the indictment. They are accused of working with Maduro to support international drug trafficking organizations.
We'll keep an eye on this right now and bring in NBC News correspondent Sam Brock, who's at the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, where Maduro is about to be heading to. Sam, good morning. Recap for us. What exactly is the government alleging here? What are the charges Maduro's facing?
Yeah, Joe, Savannah, good morning. Just to set the scene here first, countless cameras, as you would imagine, huge police presence. And as you were just describing, Joe, a second ago, we watched within the last 15 or 20 minutes as Nicolás Maduro, the deposed former leader of Venezuela, and his wife Cilia Flores were taken from an armored car to another vehicle where they were transported to a helipad, flown by helicopter to the Wall Street helipad, and now we're in the process of being taken here to the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan. The expectation, it's going to take several hours to process them. In terms of the charges that Maduro is facing, so first of all, it's Maduro, Cilia Flores, his son, and 3 other top lieutenants, although we believe it is just going to be Maduro and his wife in court today. Not exactly clear the status of the other people that were indicted. But as far as the charges that they're facing, Joe, you mentioned narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation conspiracy. The indictment lays out in very clear terms over 20-some-odd pages how Maduro had spent years coordinating with some of the most notorious drug cartels in the world, from Tren de Aragua in Venezuela to the Sinaloa cartel, effectively subverting legitimate political and military institutions for drug trafficking. The indictment lays out, in its own words, a relentless campaign of distributing cocaine to the United States, which led to the death of Americans, as you're looking right now at live images of that truck, that armored car, transporting Maduro right now to the federal courthouse where we are standing. So this could all be transpiring, really, in terms of getting him to the location to start the processing, really within the next several minutes, you would imagine. But those are the charges that they're facing, and the narco-terrorism, of course, is the biggest umbrella charge. There's weapons-related charges as well, but obviously all of it very serious, guys.
Yeah, quick drive. Again, live pictures on your screen right now in a vehicle and about in the middle of that convoy there, Maduro traveling from what Sam pointed out is the Wall Street helipad that's right down in Lower Manhattan, and really just quite a brief drive to where you are, Sam, at the federal courthouse, where we'll see him shortly. What do we expect in court today? Do Maduro and his wife have an attorney?
Yes. So that is one of the big questions going into this, right? First of all, the expectation is it's going to be an arraignment. They're not appearing before a magistrate. They are appearing before a senior U.S. District Court judge. So it's the initial appearance, probably an arraignment where they'll be asked to plead. But the question about whether or not they're going to have representation and who that might be is very much open-ended, because with respect to Maduro, he's been under U.S. sanctions, guys. He's had assets frozen. It's not even clear whether or not he can hire an American law firm. It might be a court-assigned attorney. If it is, Maduro or Cilia Flores, his wife, they may request consultation with the attorneys before they actually enter a plea. So this could be 10 minutes. It could be an hour. Typically, you know, in arraignments like this, you're not only going to have a brief recap of the charges, but also the judge would ask how long representation needs to prepare for trial. No doubt this is something that's going to take a year or longer, years potentially. There will certainly be motions filed, whoever ultimately represents Maduro, on the basis that the legality of his capture should be challenged because it violated international law. These are all things that are going to play out in the weeks to come. But right now, will there be a plea? Who will his attorney or representation consist of? Those are the things we're going to be watching out for in a matter of hours, as the arraignment is expected to take place at noon today.
Obviously, we're keeping a close eye on Maduro right now as he makes his way to the courthouse. But as you mentioned, Sam, moments ago, he and his wife are not the only ones listed in the indictment. You also mentioned his son, 3 other lieutenants. I know we don't know much, but what are we learning about their status when it comes to this criminal case?
Sure. So with respect to his wife, she was not listed, Joe, in the superseding indictment that dates back to 2020. This latest indictment, which came, again, from a federal grand jury in New York, does include Cilia Flores. She is charged in the cocaine importation conspiracy side of it, not the narco-terrorism side. But, of course, the latest indictment has been updated with more criminal activity in recent years. Similar charges for his son, for the other 3 lieutenants as well, all of it related to the trafficking of drugs and coordination with these cartels and narco-terrorist organizations that we were just talking about, in addition to possession of weapons or conspiracy to possess weapons. There's a whole bunch of layers to the indictment, but the top line certainly are Maduro and his wife.
Again, about to arrive where you are at the courthouse in Lower Manhattan. Sam, walk us through a little bit about what we expect today in terms of how long something like this is going to take. What happens after for Maduro and his wife, where they'll head, where they're going to be continuing to be held?
It's a great question. This could be a very sort of quick, perfunctory hearing, although one would imagine, given the complexity that's involved here, it may not be. Again, wow, just a surreal scene as you're watching his armored car right now and a police escort arrive at the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan, literally as we are talking right now. Savannah, to your question in terms of where Maduro and his wife have been detained, it's MDC, it's the Metropolitan Detention Center. That's located in Brooklyn. It's only about a 15 or 20-minute drive from where we are in Lower Manhattan. This is the same facility where Luigi Mangione is currently being detained as he awaits trial. Sean Diddy Combs, Ghislaine Maxwell, several other high-profile defendants have also been there. It's frankly a notorious institution in the sense that there have been so many accounts of violence there, of inhumane conditions. That's where Maduro is and where Cilia Flores have been detained in these early hours here. And again, you are watching in real time right now as the armored truck that has both of them inside is now preparing to take them from the truck inside the building. We're going to lose our vision here any second now, and to process those two, and that's expected to take several hours. There's no indication that NBC News has at this point that the other members of that indictment, other people indicted, are actually going to be in court today.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.